Hey, how you doing? My name is Toasty Thomas, and welcome to Kirby Air Ride, a racing game released in July of 2003 for the Nintendo GameCube. This is a very special game I hold close to my heart, as it was the first Kirby game I ever played, and oh man, am I glad I had it as a kid, because it is one of the best games for the GameCube. My brother and I would play this game for hours, screwing around in City Trial, perfecting our runs through the tracks of Air Ride mode, and clearing out the checklist and getting all the cool unlockables. But I'm sure you're looking at the mixed reception that this game has, and you're wondering, what makes me hold to such a high regard? Well, let's start with the basics. Kirby Air Ride has 3 different modes of play, but we'll mostly be focusing on the first mode, Air Ride, as it is the main mode of the game and, well, it's the one the game is named after. Upon starting up a race, the first thing you'll notice about Kirby Air Ride is the unique one-button control scheme. While racing, you use the control stick, the A button, and nothing else. Unlike other racing games where pressing a button will accelerate your kart, in Air Ride, you automatically accelerate, and the A button is used to brake and build up a boost if you hold it down long enough and let it go. You can even glide when going off a ramp. Aside from that, the rest of the gameplay looks simple. Get power-ups, use them to beat back opponents, and complete the set number of laps to win. However, there's more to it past the surface. You see, what makes Kirby Air Ride stand out as a racer is that instead of picking a character, you pick from a variety of unique machines, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and other quirks. You start out with the Warp Star, the most well-rounded of the machines in terms of stats, and is good for learning the game's controls. But as you play more, you'll start unlocking other machines, and at first, these other machines might just seem like gimmicky alternatives to the well-rounded Warp Star. The Wing Star is slow on the ground, the Crew Star can't turn unless you brake, and the Slick Star gives you as much traction as a bar of soap. This may result in you picking one machine that you find the least annoying and just sticking to that one machine. However, the game can get very boring if you do that. But wait, I hear you say, you said this was one of the greatest games on the GameCube, and yet you just spoke negatively about it. Where is the fun in this game? Well, I was just about to get to that before you interrupted me. See, the game isn't really about the racing itself, it's about figuring out all these weird machines and using their quirks to your advantage. Like, sure, the Wing Star can be slow on the ground, but in exchange, it has the advantage of being a great glider, and can become an even greater glider in the air with skillful bounces off the ground to extend your flight. And yeah, the Crew Star's quirk of not being able to turn while moving might make it seem hard to use, until you discover that the Crew Star's boosting power and charge up makes up for it having to stop and turn. And while the Slick Star may be slippery, you still move when braking, which you can use to chain the charged up boost with the boost pad for more speed. There's also wheelie bikes, which can't glide all that well compared to some of the other machines, but can go over boost pads without braking, along with the wheelie scooter and Rex Wheelie having some quirks of their own. There are many other machines to try out, like the Rocket Star, which has a slower charge, but its boost is much stronger, the Turbo Star, which charges slowly at a standstill, but charges quicker in a turn. The Shadow Star can glide and is edgy as far as I can tell, and the Jet Star can build up a boost while gliding. The point I'm making with all this fuss about the machines and their quirks is that they offer a variety of playstyles. You could do a race on the Warp Star and have an easy time gliding, but then do another race on the wheelie bike where you might have a harder time gliding, but you don't have to worry about pressing A to hit boost pads. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't ever use the wheelie bike on glide heavy courses, it just means you should consider a machine's strengths and weaknesses, as it's always possible to win the race if you learn the track and how your machine best tackles it. Speaking of which, let's talk about the tracks. Air Ride mode has 9 unique tracks, with each one having a different theme. Fantasy Meadows is a simple but fun track that's perfect for learning the controls. Celestial Valley has a lot of jumps that encourage gliding. Sky Sands contains hidden paths that can only be found with keen eyes, and has tons of vertical space perfect for gliding-oriented machines. Frozen Hillside has a whale! And some switches that can activate hazards and reveal hidden boost pads. Magma Flows has a volcano where you pick one of 3 rails that lead you into one of 3 different paths. Beanstalk Park is a roller coaster that has a really cool pod Ferris wheel shortcut. Machine Passage has a lot of tight turns and long straights, perfect for high-speed machines like the Cruisers and Rocket Stars. And Checker Nights is a fun endurance run made more fun by its music. Every track is a joy to race through and can be won with almost any machine. Except for Nebula Belt. Seriously, who makes their final course a figure 8 with no major hazards or shortcuts? But one thing that makes these tracks even more unique is that you and the other racers are not the only ones on the track. Various enemies will be found aimlessly wandering the course that can be inhaled to gain power-ups. However, unlike Mario Kart, where items can often determine the outcome of the race, power-ups in Air Ride aren't really a factor, and you won't always be near an opponent to use them, making every race more about skill over luck. I hope you're starting to at least see my point about how this game has way more depth than it lets on at first. The simplicity hides the game's complexity well. A bit too well for its own good, which I believe is the reason why this game has found itself with mixed reviews. And you might be wondering, how do you get past the simplicity and learn the deeper, more interesting parts of the game? Well, easy really. Use a little thing called the checklist. This feature may seem familiar if you've played Super Smash Bros. Brawl and onward. It's a big list of achievements that allows you to unlock extra rewards, ranging from the machines, to 4 extra Kirby colors, to being able to play as Metadite and King Dedede. By accomplishing one of the tasks on the checklist, the board will reveal the achievements required by the adjacent squares, giving you something new to go for every time you complete a challenge. Even when you don't get a reward, this feature makes the checklist handy because it's always encouraging you to try something new and discover more about the game and its various machines and tracks. It gives you a clear idea of what can be achieved in the game and encourages you to try and push it to the limit. One of the best challenges provided by the checklist are the time trial challenges, which challenge you to complete a track or lap in a certain time or using certain machines. These trials are really great tests of your track and machine knowledge, encouraging you to constantly tweak and experiment with your approach to a race. But I think instead of telling you, it would be better to show you what I mean. Here I have 2 time trials I did on Fantasy Metals. One with the Warp Star, and one with the Wheelie Bike, with the challenge being to beat it in 1 minute. Here's the run I did on the Warp Star. Okay, I got a decent time, but there is still room for improvement and things I should do on the next run. One of them being the enemies. In time trials, enemies are on the track like they are in a standard race. At first, they might seem like an inconvenience, but they are far from that, because taking them out grants you a speed boost, which can be chained, allowing you to cover a lot of ground quickly. Actually, now that I think about it, the race starts with a sword enemy, and when you eat it, you gain the sword copy ability, which lets you attack automatically. After that, there is a boost pad on the left. The only issue is that you have to break with the Warp Star in order to get the boost, so I choose the Wheelie Bike as it will go over the boost pad without breaking. With all of this knowledge in mind, I ready myself for another time trial. The result? Now that is a much better time. Sure, there were some missteps here and there, but even so, I still felt proud of this time. With a checklist challenge in front of me, I learned the track and experimented to find the best machine to get the time. And that's what I love about Kirby Air Ride. It's a game that's all about improvement through experimentation. Hell, most of the footage I got from this game was just me playing around and experimenting with the machines, trying to get the best lap times I could. And as I kept going, the feeling of improving little by little was simply amazing. And that's just in Air Ride mode. The experimentation gets even better with the mode some might remember most from this game: City Trial. Here's how it works. You and up to 3 other players ride around the city this mode takes place in, trying to find pickups that will upgrade your machine's stats. Once the timer runs out, you participate in a stadium event. Simple, right? Well, no, because it's not just the stadium events that make this mode fun, it's also the city itself because various random events will happen, causing chaos all over the map. While I wasn't able to record footage for all of the events, they're pretty varied and can make each visit to the city feel fresh and exciting. But how is the experimentation with the machines applied to this mode? Well, unlike Air Ride mode where you get to pick a machine from the start, you instead start out on the Compact Star, which is a fairly weak machine but as the game progresses can be upgraded with permanent stat boosts that improve things like top speed and weight. You can also abandon the Compact Star altogether to look for one of the other Air Ride machines hiding around the map and upgrade them instead. These upgrades are mostly found in blue crates scattered around the map. Meanwhile, you can also find red and green crates with temporary boosts or copy abilities that you can use to mess with your enemies. If you're lucky, you might even get a piece of the Dragoon or Hydra, legendary machines with OP stats and performance. If you can find all 3 pieces of either machine, congratulations! You win the game! But in the end, there's only one result that matters. Seeing if the machine you've built can win it all in the stadium event that occurs once time expires. You have a wide variety of events like drag races, kill the most enemies, destruction derbies, targets, high jump, longest glide, single lap races on air ride tracks, and even a fight against the giant King Dedede. Now, of course, some machines will have natural advantages for certain events, like the Rocket Star and Crew Star being the best for the drag racing events, or the Wing Star being really good at gliding based events. But that doesn't mean you're always at a disadvantage if you don't use those machines. The beauty of City Trial Stadium events is that with enough stats, you can improve your machine's weaknesses and win at events you couldn't with the default machine. This means you can use the wheelie bike in both drag race and high jump events, or you can try using the heavy bulk star in the glide event. And the key point is that the event you get at the end is random, which means you not only need to know how the machine you're using works, you also need to have a plan of whether you want to fix the areas where it's weak or boost the areas where it's stronger. You can change the event to be a certain type in the options if you want to screw around with a certain machine in a certain event, though I find that it takes away from the surprise and variety, which is an important part of what makes City Trial such a memorable mode. Your next run will not be the same as your last run. In your next run, you might get all the Hydra or Dragoon pieces and won't have to worry about picking up stat boosts. You might get lucky and have the best stats on the right machine for the event, or you might have to use the wrong machine and lose. But it's how you apply your knowledge of the machines and upgrading their stats as much as you can that can mean the difference between victory and defeat. And that's Kirby Air Ride. Honestly, coming back to this game was a blast. It is truly a gem for the GameCube. I love the amount of experimentation it has. There is so much to learn from the machines, to the courses, to the events. There is a fun learning curve to be discovered if you learn to use the checklist and play with the machines. I'd love to see this game get a sequel, especially with that new 3D Kirby game coming out. You know, keep the 3D Kirby train going. But seeing as how Nintendo likes to charge $60 for games that lack content, it might be best if they leave this game alone. But I still highly recommend you get this game, even if you have to get it through unsavory means. But with that said, this has been Toasty Thomas saying thanks for watching, and have a good one.